Hi, this is Peggy with Natural Awakening Chicago Magazine, and welcome back to our Women in Wellness feature series that we're running all month. We're talking with very wonderful women in wellness in the Chicago area, health practitioners, people with women-owned health-related businesses, and similar. And I am so happy to be here with Tiffany Hinton of GF Mom Certified. You may recognize Tiffany, hopefully, from the pages of our magazine every month, where she has her GF Mom Certified column. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. Thank you for, it's such an honor to be here too and to be featured in the Women in Wellness section this year.
Yeah, so glad you're able to join us in that. That's wonderful. So for people who may not be completely familiar, how would you define what GF Mom Certified is and what it means?
Oh, the name for me has so much meaning and background. And
Mhm.
it was like my husband came up with it, which was crazy at the time. And then it's just so much has evolved just from that name. He's like, I got the name. And I was like, okay, what is it? But so GF is for gluten-free,
Mhm.
and then mom, and then certified. And so I am a mom of three, and I am a certified functional medicine health coach. So it's kind of a combination of the world we live in. I'm a gluten-free lifestyle expert, celiac myself, and have done several years speaking nationally on different platforms and stages on living a gluten-free lifestyle.
So as a mom, as an influencer, and as somebody who has experienced this condition on a daily basis, what role can you take? How are you uniquely in this role? What's your approach with this multifaceted message that you have?
My deepest approach and my deepest mission is to help other women have a life and a body that they love, to help them find a life that they actually really enjoy living,
Mhm.
and to wake up pain-free. And what I learned early on in my own celiac diagnosis is that not only do we grieve food, but we grieve things that we believe we no longer can have because we have this restricted lifestyle, or what we impose on ourselves as a restricted lifestyle. Um, I've had clients, first, second phone call we've done, say, I don't have any more friends. And I'd be like, well, why not? What happened? And one of the ladies actually said, I can't go eat anymore, with my club because I can't eat at those restaurants. So they're not my friends anymore. And I'm like, I think that's a little extreme. Let's talk through that. That's
Yeah.
part of the reason I always say to get a coach or find a counselor when you do have a new diagnosis of an autoimmune condition or celiac disease. But the other thing that is unique is that I live the disease every day. It took me 14 years to get the diagnosis. And that's another
Wow.
thing with celiac disease, is that a lot of people, it takes years and years and years unless you find a really good practitioner who knows what they're looking for, because the symptoms are so varied and there's such this variety of how they present, that there is a lot of other things that they will diagnose or even tell you that, like, let's run this test or this test, instead of going down the celiac route first, because there was a belief at one time that celiac disease was a European white disease. And that is so far from the truth, but it still is kind of out there in the medical community. And if you're not Scandinavian descent or European descent, they don't necessarily test you for celiac first.
Mhm.
And a lot of times that's not beneficial either, because then you go on and suffer. So the uniqueness is that I live it every day myself. I have an 8-year-old who also has celiac disease, who's a competitive gymnast now and is on a gymnastics team. And so, um, having the empathy, having the knowledge of what they could be going through, and knowing that in this dynamic world that we live in, tips, tricks, biohacks to get yourself out of bed to do your job or to take care of your family or whatever it is that you want to do in life. I've got a lot of them, because it's been 16 years that I've been diagnosed, but it's been over 30 years of being sick.
And the frustration
Yeah.
that you had along the way. So what might be a couple of those magical moments that you've had, either working with clients or working with yourself, of a realization, as you said, well, I can be with friends, or I can do this, or if I just change this.
One of the biggest realizations for me was the power of enzymes.
Mhm.
Enzymes in natural food, enzymes in supplement form, but enzymes, if you don't know what enzymes are, if somebody's watching this, they're living, breathing little micronutrient micromolecules that actually work as scissors, and they help digest our food. So they naturally are in raw foods like pineapples and green grapes and ghee, and different foods have enzymes in them. But there is an enzyme called protease that you can get as a supplement. And for people that have celiac or have a reaction to gluten, having an enzyme to take if you are eating out, or you're, doing something where you're not sure that it's 100% safe, has been a game changer. Whether we order in or we go out, or we're eating at a friend's house or we're at my parents' house. Like my mom sometimes is like, I swear it's safe. And I'm like, I know you do, but I'm still going to take some of these because it's just my security blanket. Right.
Yeah.
It's like that little Linus thing that you carry around with you. So that's been huge for me, big realization. And I didn't really know a lot about enzymes until probably 6-7 years ago. And they were presented to me not in the celiac realm. They were presented to me for people with gallbladder disease and disorders. And I was sitting at a medical conference. And I was like, well, if they work for that, let me do some other research for a minute. And that was really eye-opening. Big win with some of my clients, though, is the idea that if they can go gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free, that the amount of time that it takes to heal is drastically decreased. And that has been amazing. There's been women I've worked with who couldn't get off the couch, who cried because they wanted to play with their grandchildren. We worked together for 6 months. And then she's like, yeah, I just walked 5 miles today. And I was like, wait, what? Weren't you this person that was crying because you couldn't get on the floor to play with your new grandbaby? And it was just food. She had changed what she was eating. She was eating more whole foods, more real foods, stuff that she was cooking at home, or her husband was cooking. Several other women I've worked with are able to put their wedding rings back on because the inflammation and the swelling goes down, and that water retention that we have when we have inflammation in our bodies is also like this huge emotional win for them.
All part of the healing process.
It is, definitely.
Yeah. Well, following that line and going back to something you said before about grieving for the foods we can no longer have, how do you balance that? How do you work with people to say, well, maybe you can't have this, but you can have this, and introducing them to things that they may never have considered?
Yeah. And you do have to go through the grieving process. So, but before you even introduce something as a substitute, because otherwise they look at the substitute as it's not the same. Right. And gluten-free bread is a great example of this. It's just tastes different. It's grittier. It's whatever, right? They all have whatever. You'll say it's not the same. We know it's not the same. It's made with different grain, different types of flour. Of course, it's not the same. So acknowledging the grieving process, working through some journaling exercises definitely always helps. Working through the anger, making sure that they have the anger moments, even if you have to introduce the anger, and then working through the tears and just that, so that you can come out on the other side and then be open to possibilities. And then you can look at substitutions, whether there's a gluten-free bread or there's a vegan bread that you like that's also grain-free, or moving to other things. I had a lady several years ago who was diagnosed with a gluten issue and a sugar issue. And so diabetic and a gluten intolerance at the same time. And I was like, what will you not eat? And this is somebody that was in her 60s. And she's like, I eat anything but zucchini. And I was like, in my head thinking like, how does that work? Like, I could understand that from a 2-year-old, from a 4-year-old, like zucchini, fine. But you're telling me you'll eat squash, you'll eat like anything but a zucchini. And so I actually challenged her and made her eat a zucchini in one meal. And then the following week we got on the phone and we were doing her session, and she's like, it wasn't so bad. And I was like, so what's worse than a zucchini? And she started naming these other foods. But by the time we were done, she's like, you got any more zucchini recipes? And I was like, I thought you didn't eat those. But sometimes it is just
pasta with them. Yeah.
Right. It's the mentality of kind of going back to childhood for a second, making it a game, making it a challenge, and truth or dare, right? Or I dare you to do this. And a lot of people are competitive. A lot of women, even though they're sick, they still want to play games. They still enjoy that little childhood moment.
Yeah. One of the threads that runs through a lot of your recipes is having the girls involved and having your husband involved. in the preparation, in the eating. And I would imagine that bringing the whole family in also helps in the healing process and also kind of builds a support system. What are some tips for getting started with that? If it's completely foreign to the relationship you're in or to the kids, how do you get them on board?
So part of getting them on board is getting them to want to be in the kitchen,
Mhm.
right? Because a lot of people either didn't grow up cooking or they grew up with microwave or whatever.
Yeah.
And so wanting to get them in the kitchen, right? And if it's your husband, maybe it's because you're like, hey, let's spend the night together, let's have a glass of wine, put on some music, and we'll cook together,
Mhm.
and making it kind of like an in-house date, which is kind of fun. um Other ways to do that is, when me and Will were first dating, it was always like, this is a first. And maybe there's a food that neither one of you have ever had, whether it's Ethiopian or some other, world cuisine. And you can make that like, hey, this is the first time we've both had this together. And it's a
Yeah.
great experience and it creates connection.
Mhm.
When it comes to kids, it's a little bit easier to get them to want to cook because it's messy, it's creative. You can pull in colors, you can pull in their hands. Exactly, Peggy.
Yeah.
You can allow them to experiment,
Mhm.
even though it may not turn out. Or hey, create your own recipe, and then they taste it, and sometimes they love it, and sometimes they're like, wait, that didn't really go together. Why did I put pickles in the muffin?
Yeah.
I
Oh.
don't know, but it was your experiment. Um, so the one way to do that with children, though, is to let go of your control as the parent, as the mother. Let go of the control that it's going to be clean, that it's going to be perfect, that it might not even like turn out, and be okay with it like not turning out, or exploding in your oven. We've had that happen. There has been lots of, we call them kitchen experiments or science experiments in the kitchen every time the girls come in. But they are learning to love to cook. They are learning great skills. They're learning fractions and math and science. And they're learning like what happens when you mix vinegar and, baking soda, or you put Sprite in a recipe because you can't use an egg and you still want air. So they're learning a lot of that. But those would be some of my suggestions. And
Mhm.
then when it comes to like the kitchen becoming gluten free, one of the biggest things that you have to express to your family is that cross contact, cross contamination, whatever you want to call it, is real. And if they don't want you to be grouchy, they don't want you to yell at them, they don't want you to be in the bathroom for 30 minutes, um, that they really have to be careful not to introduce gluten into the safe foods.
Mhm.
In our house, we just went 100% gluten free.
Yeah.
Over the years, we've bought new appliances, traded out stuff. Um, it was a great opportunity
Cutting
for my
boards
husband to get a
changed.
new grill because the old grill had buns on it and all different stuff that you just couldn't clean.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, but you can label things and, make little cute stickers, whatever, in your fridge. You can create drawers or certain shelves in your pantry that are just for gluten safe items.
So a lot of things have changed in the last year, obviously. A lot of attitudes, a lot of focus people have had on their health. What are you seeing as trends in the gluten-free world that's happened as a result of the pandemic?
As a result of last year, people are turning back to real food. They're turning back to, actually, I had a lady today leave me a voicemail and she's like, I need to grow food. Because we realized that a lot of the brands we loved were small to mid-size,
Mhm.
and either they couldn't get source,
Mhm.
or they couldn't manufacture, or something happened in the manufacturing
Yeah.
to grocery store, like that whole process and the whole distribution lines weren't working.
Weeks to get what you wanted.
Oh, weeks to get what you wanted, to your favorite places going out of business,
Yeah.
to one of the things my husband actually uses every morning is sourced from India.
Hmm.
Can't get it. The product's back ordered because we can't get the items to even make the item. So we can't even get the raw ingredients. So what I'm finding, though, is people are turning back to their gardens. They're turning back to hydroponics. That's another thing that keeps coming up a lot lately, is how can I just grow in the house? I don't want to deal with outside.
Yeah, we a couple
So they're
articles.
going back to those recipes that are super easy,
Mhm.
that they can make at home. A lot of salads, a lot of just roasted vegetables. Instapot is very, very popular right now.
And you have started a whole new program.
We
of
have.
helping people to heal their gut through whole foods coming from their garden.
Yeah. So we launched the Greenwich Gardening to actually do exactly that, to help people plant foods that they're not allergic to, that they can get really good nutrients from. Because as you know, Peggy, the longer things grow, the more sun it has, the more nutrients it gets to develop on the vine.
You know what it was grown in, you know how it was treated, no pesticides, no chemicals.
Yeah.
And
So we launched an online course. We've done some live workshops, and then I've been doing home visits or backyard visits, outside visits to people to help them plan it, map it, and actually had the experience to take one lady to a garden center, which was super fun. We drove up to a mom and pop owned garden center and got her herbs and different things.
Great. So what's next for you? You've got GF Mom, you've got the events you do, your online, your Garden Witch, the books that you write. What's next?
So we have a new book coming out in June 17th, which is around biohacking and whole foods detox. That's going to be also a masterclass. So there'll be an online masterclass that will walk people through that book as well. That's probably the next big thing coming out. And that'll be under the Hacking Your Health umbrella of GF Mom Certified, which is our biohacking area, using food as medicine. It's based on a 14-month program that I ran 4 years ago, which had huge results for about 200 women that went through that in just healing their bodies and getting their fitness back and their lifestyle back and looking younger. I mean, that was the other thing. People would take these before and afters and it would be like, oh my gosh, you look 10 years younger. And what did you do? And they're like, I just cook my own food now. I was like, wait, it's that easy? But it was really that simple. I don't know if it was easy for them by any means, but it was that simple. So the new Hacking Your Health 3-week detox is based on that program, which then, like I said, we're going to launch the masterclass, which will be online. And then there's the book.
Great. Great. So let's see, what else? What do you ask somebody who is gluten-free and really careful about what she eats? Oh, what's your favorite cheat food?
My favorite cheat food is potato chips.
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free potato chips, preferably not fried in canola oil. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, thanks so much, Tiffany.
Thank you.
I love following you every month in your column and all of your online. You've got some great social, many chances for people to see videos and learn more with you. Where can they go to connect?
gfmomcertified.com. You can find us on Instagram at gfmomcertified. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, like almost every platform. You could definitely connect that way. And then if somebody's like wanting to schedule a consultation or reach out, feel free to email me. It's tiffany@gfmomcertified.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, and good luck with the book in June and the other launches.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peggy.